All right, so welcome to another yoga class, and today you may need some bricks, a bolster if you've got knees that really don't like doing pigeon pose, so I'll show you how to use that. Blanket's quite nice, or a towel if you've got it, strap, maybe not using that so much today. And we're going to start by sitting down. So if you've got warm clothes on, feel free to keep them on at the moment because it's a little bit cooler now, and we'll have a comfortable position. If you're happy sitting cross-legged, then you can take that position. If not, feel free, you can have the legs out in front as well. And bear in mind that anything we do in the class today, if it doesn't feel right for your body, please don't do it. We are going to be doing pigeon pose and quite a bit with downward dog, so that's quite strong on the wrists. And yeah, just be careful of your knees and your hips with some of the poses today. So let's start by having a nice tall spine, hands down, just in connection with the floor there. And we're going to take a big breath in, take the arms up overhead, big stretch out. And as we exhale, we're going to release the hands back down towards the floor. As we breathe in, turn the palms up towards the ceiling. If you can, connect the fingers. As you exhale, turn the palms out and release and soften. So we'll do that one more time. Nice deep breath in. And release. This time we'll add a little twist. So we're going to breathe in, draw up, and as we exhale, turn to the right, split the arms. You can bring the right hand behind, left hand to knee, but no forcing. So it's just a little twist. You want to keep the spine nice and tall, and then maybe take the gaze around into the twist. Keeping the head balanced over the hips, so not leaning backwards or sideways. On our next breath in, let's come back and up to the center. And then on the exhale, we'll turn, we'll rotate to our left. Take the gaze around. Nice relaxed breath, keeping the shoulders down. Take the eyes into the twist as well. Next breath in, we'll bring the arms back up. And release. So now we'll do a little cat-cow roll. If you can change which leg you have in front, you can do that. Hands on either knee. And we're going to breathe in, lift the chest. So it's like a mini back arch. You can take the gaze up. And then on the exhale, releasing backwards. So drawing navel to spine, chin tucked in. We're just rounding out. Inhale, lifting up. And exhale, release, relax, rounding out. One more time. Let it go. And come back to our center. All right, from here, let's come over to line our sides. So if you want, you could have a blanket to support underneath the head, and we're going to be lying out straight. If you do like to have something soft, we're going to have the bottom arm also extended, so I would have your support on the top of that arm, and then you can just rest the head there. Of course, you don't have to have that either. And we want a nice straight line from here. If the shoulder's okay with it, we're going to take that top arm overhead, and then as we breathe in, reach out through the fingers, point away through the toes. As we exhale, soften and relax. And we'll do that 2 more times. Big breath in, stretch away, and release. Last one. And relax. And then we'll bring this top arm down. And we're going to get a stretch for this big quad muscle and the hip flexor at the front here. So if possible, reach around, hold on to your foot or your ankle. And if that's a little bit tricky, you could also loop a strap around it. And we want to try and keep the knees together. Now, if you feel But this is a little balance. You can also bend that bottom knee for a bit more stability. And I'm keeping my hips moving slightly forwards. So I sort of don't want to sink it back and have the knee forwards. And I'm also opening up the front of my chest and shoulder on that top side as well. So just letting that stretch sink in. If you want to add a little bit extra, you could try sliding that top knee a little further back. Okay, we're going to let that go. And then we'll bring the hand in front and then slide that left knee in front. So just a release through the buttock and the lower back there. Now we will change sides. So we're going to flip it round. You can bring your support with you if you're using that. So bottom arm extended, but then make sure that you've got your blanket or towel on top of the arm rather than underneath it. And then straight line through the body. And we'll take the top arm overhead if that's comfortable. Big breath in, stretch out through the fingers and toes. And as we exhale, relax. And again, deep breath in. Let it go. One more time. And release. And then from here, we're going to see if we can reach around and hold on to the ankle or the foot. And then we want to try and bring the knees back towards each other. You can bend that bottom knee if you like for a bit more stability. And we're just trying to allow that opening in the quad muscle, in the front of the hip there. And relax that top shoulder back as well. It's a little stretch in the pec muscles at the front. If you want to add more, you could slide that top knee back a little further if it feels okay. And then we'll gently release. We'll bring that hand in front and then slide the knee to the front. A little rest. Okay, and then we'll come up onto hands and knees. So you could use a blanket underneath your knees, and we're coming into our cat-cow pose. So as we warm up, you may want to take a layer off, or not, but I shall. And then with the wrists, let's just do a little bit of a roll around and the other way. And then we'll come down. Shoulders stacked over wrists, hips over knees. And from here, we're going to focus on our pelvic floor as we do our cat-cow roll. So between the tailbone and the pubic bone and the sit bones, pelvic floor is within those four regions that we're going to squeeze and draw up. So as we breathe in, we relax the pelvic floor so the sit bones broaden. And then as we exhale and the tailbone tucks under towards the pubic bone, we draw up that pelvic floor. So we relax on the breath in, a little dip through the back, and then on the exhale, drawing up the pelvic floor as we round out through the spine. Now, as we breathe in and soften, notice the next time when we contract the pelvic floor on the exhale, the inner thighs will probably want to kick in as well, so that's okay, and the belly. And then we release and soften, relax. And this is our last one, so draw up that pelvic floor, draw navel to spine, and really lift the spine between the shoulder blades. So we want to stretch out between the shoulders. And then we'll come back to a neutral position. If you want to give your wrists a little release, you can. And then we'll come into two-legged cat pose. So we're going to have the right leg coming back and the left arm forwards. It's just a little stretch out across the body. Head's neutral, in line with the rest of the spine. Let's bring it back in. Inhale, let's take left leg, right arm. Extend it all the way out. And then we'll bring that back in. And then we'll come back. You can either sit back on your heels if that's comfortable. You can come upright like I do. Just a little rotation through the wrists. We're going to do a stronger stretch for our forearm here. So some people are happy to do both hands at once. Others it's a little bit tricky, so you can just do one hand if you prefer. So we bring the fingertips back towards the knee. I want to keep a little bit of softness in my elbow joint so it's not popping too far forwards. If you're happy to do the other side at the same time, you can. And up to you how far you lean back. Your body's going to tell you your limits. So if you're doing one side, change it over now to the other hand. This is really good for preventing carpal tunnel, but if you do have carpal tunnel, this might be too strong. So definitely, if it's agonizing, etc., just leave it alone or back it off. Okay, we're going to release and hanging cat stretch. So we're going to keep the hips over the knees and we're going to do a little fist and release after that strong stretch. So if comfortable, rest the forehead on the floor as we contract and extend through the fingers, making a fist and then reaching out. Spine is long. All right, from here, let's now take those hands shoulder width apart. And again, either resting forehead on the floor, but a little lift through those floating ribs so we're not collapsing into the back. If that's not comfortable, you could bend the elbows, rest the head. But I'm looking for length through the spine and the side waist. Hips stay over knees. And then we'll walk it back in as we bring the head back up. And we're going to be moving now towards pigeon pose, Raja Kapotasana. So to get a little bit more into these glute muscles and hips, from our cat position, we're going to do a nice little stretch where we take the right leg back, keep the toes on the floor and sweep it round to the left, and then we slide back and rest the forearms on the ground. Now, most people's knees should be okay with this, but if this is too much on that supporting knee, don't slide too far back. I mean, all we're looking for here is this opening. There is an alternative that I can give you as well on your back for when we get to full pigeon pose. But I quite like this one. Nice simple stretch. And the knees are pretty happy in this one. All right, we're going to come back up. So to our cat, and then we'll take our left foot behind, sweep the left foot over to the right side, and then we slide back until we can get our forearms on the floor, and we just rest here. You could have a little play with the hip position to find the best opening for those buttock muscles out of hip. But I don't want any pain in the knee. Now for pigeon pose, a couple of blocks can be quite nice for support, a bolster for those with knees, or you may even end up having to do this one on your back. So let's come out of here. Typically, when we come into our pigeon pose, we take the knee all the way up towards the same side hand, and then we bring the foot across to the other side of the mat. So when we do this, so I've got my knee coming up to my hand, I'm then going to bring my foot across to the opposite side of the mat, and then I'm sinking back with my right leg. So I've got my left knee up at the moment. And this is okay for some, but for other people this is going to be too much on the knee. So I keep my foot pretty low. I'm trying to relax my right hip to my left heel. Other people are more than happy to bring their foot up parallel to the top of the mat and sink into it. It's going to give you a stronger stretch here, but it also puts more torque on the knee joint. So don't do that at the expense of your knee. And for others, if you're finding this really uncomfortable, please, your choice could be coming over onto your back instead. Cross your left leg over your right, take the right foot off, and you can either stay with this, you're still getting the same opening, or you can take it a little closer in. You could hold the front of the shin or behind the back of the thigh. So that's another alternative to your pigeon. And I'll show you the bolster when we get to the other side. You may be happy to extend all the way out and rest your forehead on the floor. Totally up to you. Okay, let's come on to our hands. Now, for support, you could put something underneath your buttock or your thigh, and you could rest up on that as we come up a little higher. And you could also use the support for your hand as well. So this is the actual pigeon pose. We're opening up the pigeon breast at the front. It's actually a back bend. Optional extra of reaching around, grabbing hold of the back foot or ankle, getting really strong quad stretch. But if it doesn't feel good, don't bother with it. And we want to keep the chest open. I'm trying to move my right hip forward, so I'm trying to keep my hips as level as I can. I'm leaning into this brick a little bit, so I could come off that. Okay, we're going to let that go. Remove the props out of the way. Place both hands on the floor, and we're going to ease back into a walking downward dog. So let's tuck the right toes under, lift the knee, and then slide that left leg back. And it might feel a little bit stiff. And we just walk it out till everything feels like it's all nice and juicy again. And then we'll take both knees back to the floor. So that's one side. We're now going to take the right knee to the right hand. And this side, I'll show you the option for those who quite like this one because of knee problems. What you can do is bring your whole leg over the bolster and come into your pigeon pose this way. So I find this doesn't put any pressure on my knee joint, but I'm still getting my nice opening in my outer right hip. And I'm trying to ease my left hip forwards. Because I'm stacked a little higher here, I might also have to stack my forearms up. Otherwise, if you're happy doing your pigeon pose in a more typical way without the props, be in that position, or put some support there. And then resting with the arms out in front or forearms, whatever feels best. But it's about the hips and keeping this pelvis fairly neutral, fairly level. So we'll make our way up, and remember you can add a little bit more height under the hands. Just going to shift my prop a little lower there. An option of reaching around, holding on to that back foot, but I'm still trying to move my left hip forwards. Open up the chest, but remember you don't have to do this. You can come out at any time. So I'm going to open up that chest. And then we'll release. I'm just going to take my props away, hands back to floor, toes tucked under on the left side, and then we slide that right foot back and walk it out till everything feels pretty normal. Okay, let's come all the way back to the floor, into either knees wide, big toes touching, either arms extended, forehead on floor, or head supported, or you can have the knees a little bit narrower, but just resting. And then easing back out of that, and we're going to come to lie on our stomachs. So if you want to have some padding underneath your hips, you could also set that up. And we want the feet roughly hip width, tops of the feet on the floor, but if you're prone to cramping, you might need to tuck those toes under instead. And then from here, I've got my hands higher than my head, and I'm using my back strength here, so I'm not actually using the weight through my arms. I'm just finding a little bit of back strength, but not overdoing it, seeing what my back feels like. So if you've got any pinching in your back, then you'll need to work a little bit stronger through your lower abdominal muscles. Okay, come down, rest. You can turn your head to one side, you can rest head on the hands, whatever feels good. So those lower abdominal muscles, we have a deep band of muscles that are between the pubic bone and the belly button. So here, there's a band of muscle called the transverse abdominis. And we want to get those working to support our lower back when we come up a little higher into our cobra pose. So if we lie on the floor, and if you lift your kneecaps by tightening up the quad muscles, and then drawing that space between the belly button and the pubic bone, so gently hugging that in towards the spine, you'll find that your pelvis automatically starts to tilt so that you feel, hopefully, your buttocks are moving more towards your feet. So that's the support that we want to have as we lift into our cobra. So we're going to breathe in, have the hands just above the shoulders, near the head. Next breath in, we're going to lift the head, lift the chest. And then exhale. If you wish to come higher, you can press through the hands. But you come up to where your back is happy to. And check that you haven't got the shoulders around the ears. So we draw the shoulders down, collarbones are broad. Can we keep breathing? Anytime you need to come out, please do. So it's always governed by what you feel going on in your back. If it's not happy, let it go. I'm breathing into my front body. Lengthening out through the crown of the head. And then on the next exhale, a nice controlled descent back to the floor. Your favourite rest position. And working on that beautiful, long, slow, deep breathing, if you can, through the nose. Okay, let's take the hips for a little bit of a wiggle. Loosen off the feet. And then we're going to be coming back to our downward dog position. So hands under the shoulders, tuck the toes under. Let's push up and back to downward dog and find that comfortable position between the hands and the feet. Readjust. Feet are roughly hip width. Spread the fingers out. And think about that length in the back. So if you need to keep the knees a little bit soft to prevent rounding in your shoulders, that's okay. So I'm looking down at my feet. And if I imagine that there were two fists stacked between the arches of my feet, that's roughly my hip width. I'm just settling into the pose for a moment. Noticing how this feels on the wrists and the legs. All right, let's come back to hands and knees. Now, what we're going to be doing, that's going to be our base for our next posture. So if you already had enough just doing that particular downward dog pose, there are some alternatives. You could do this on the wall, but you could also do it from a hands and knee position as an alternative. I'm going to give you a quick overview of where we're going. It's called the wild thing. And we're going to take it in stages and spend a little bit of time in each stage. So to give you a super quick overview, first of all, I want to make sure I'm not going to land on anything either side of my mat. So I'm going to have to shift my props a little further out of the way. And first choice, from a hands and knee position, especially if your wrists are already had enough, you could come onto your forearms. So what we'll be doing is taking a leg back. We're going to bend the knee, lift, turn open the hip, and then I can come onto one hand, open up. So that's a nice little modified version. If you're happy with your downward dog and you're okay to weight bear through your shoulder joints and take a bit more weight through the wrists, what we'll be doing from our downward dog is lifting a leg up, bending the knee, turning, rotating, and then the optional extra is lifting to the wild thing. Then we'll come back and then we'll have a rest before we do the second side. It's not going to be that quick though. So it's a lot of weight bearing through the upper body. Feel free to do it on hands and knees and forearms if you prefer, or you could do this as a little half dog on the wall. So also from here you could take a leg back, bend, open, and then open. That's another option as well. Alrighty, so we're going to do the right leg lift first. So choosing your position, whether it's on a bench, a wall, or hands and knees, or coming into Svanasana, your downward dog. So on a nice solid base, we're going to breathe the right leg up. So let's inhale, take it straight back, and we want to have the toes pointing to the floor. And I want to make sure that I'm not getting top heavy here through the hands. So I want to take my chest a little closer towards that bottom leg. There's a good stretch happening down through that left leg. Then we'll bend the right knee. And we're going to turn and rotate that knee and hip towards the ceiling and hold it here. So this is a great stretch. We don't want to rush it. I don't want to look up past the front of my arm. I want to preferably try and look underneath my armpit if possible. Let me keep breathing. Now you can come down and rest at any time. If this is feeling okay and your left shoulder's good for it, what you can do is pivot on your left foot as we bring the right foot over. I turn my toes away, press down through the heels, lift the top arm up. If it doesn't feel good, come down. It's quite strong. And then we'll pivot, hand back to floor, feet back to downward dog, and then both knees to floor. Let's come down, have a rest. So that's the wild thing. Gets the heart going a little bit more, and quite a lot of weight bearing through that shoulder. All right, we got our left side to go. So, your choice. You can make it as hard or as easy as you like. We'll start with downward dog or your cat pose or on the wall and settle into our base. Shoulders are relaxed. So now taking left foot or left leg up and back and hold, hips are level, foot pointing to floor, and I'm working the weight towards my bottom leg, not towards my hands. Now we're going to bend the knee, turn and rotate and hold it here, so don't rush. lifting the knee and the hip to the ceiling. So think about trying to move your left foot to your right buttock, and I'm looking underneath the arm. If you want, pivoting on that right foot, bring the left foot around, lifting up and open. If it doesn't feel good, you don't have to do it. To come out, we pivot back to our downward dog. And then we get to have a rest. Now, if you want to release those wrists as well, do whatever feels good for the hands. We let it all go. And then coming back onto hands and knees. All right, so let's move into a little bit of lunging. If you've got tight hamstrings, you may want to have a support for the hands nearby. We'll step the right foot up towards the right hand. And I want to make sure that when I lean forwards with my hips that I've still got a nice vertical shin here. So you could bring the hands up a little bit higher and bring those bricks in if you like. Or if you've just got one support, you could have that there. We're going into a high lunge. So we're going to tuck the back toes under, lift the knee, extend back through the heel. And then the added extra, so this is really where you may want to bring the hands up higher, is seeing if we can straighten into that right leg. So that's a pretty intense move. So bringing those hands up a little higher is going to make that more comfortable. Again, if you've just got the one support, you can have it here under the chest. Okay, bending into that front knee again. And then knee to floor. Let's step back. Switching over, left foot forwards. And then easing forwards with the hips, checking that we've got enough length between the back knee and the front heel. You know, adjusting the hands to be comfortable. We're going to move it into our high lunge. So let's tuck the right toes under, lift the knee, and then we'll hold. And then if you want to give it a go, see if you can straighten that front leg, and feel free to bring those hands higher onto supports. So lengthening out through the spine if possible as well. And then from this position, we're actually, rather than coming down, we're going to bend the front knee again. And you can either step that back foot in, you know, with a couple of little steps, or you might be able to step it all the way up to the top of the mat. So we'll bring both feet to about hip width, and we're coming into Uttanasana. So you might need to keep your knees a little bit soft. You might prefer to have the head more in line with the heart, or if you've got more open hamstrings, you might be able to straighten those legs as we fold forwards, either fingertips on the floor, or you can fold the arms. Again, whatever is comfortable for you. So we're stretching the whole back of the body here, but make sure you're not feeling it too strong here across the lower back. So if you are, soften those knees a little more. If it's the hamstrings you're feeling, that's okay. Okay, we're going to bend the knees, lift the head, lift the chest. Let's rest the hands mid-thighs and just allow that blood to move down, that heaviness from the head to ease off. Okay, open the arms out wide, use the legs to push, big stretch up and release. And shrug it out. Okay, so we've made it to standing and we are going to actually begin with a balance. We're going to do Vriksasana, tree pose today. So we want to make sure our feet are pointing straight ahead for starters. And we'll be balancing on our right leg first. So if we put the hands on top of the pelvis here, they're level, hands should feel level. We're going to rotate the left foot out. So I've got my knee pointing out, toes pointing out to the side. Just check you haven't collapsed into one hip. So we pull in nice and strong. Now you can keep the toes on the floor. You could also be near a wall for a bit more assistance. And then you may be able to take the foot off the floor. So you can bring it onto the calf. You might be able to bring it up a little higher either side of the knee, or perhaps even take hold and bring it all the way up to inner thigh. If it will stay, if you've got slippy pants, it might not. Mine are slipping down. And then from here, if possible, we now bring the hands together. Keep your gaze steady on one point. Lengthen up through the spine. Maybe take the breath and the arms up as we hold our tree, feeling strong. Hopefully some semblance of steadiness as we try and hold our balance. And then we're going to release the hands back down, release that leg. Don't move, don't fidget. Just observe the difference between the right leg and the left. Hopefully you should feel the difference. Okay, we can let that go. So now, balancing our left foot, check that it's straight, that you haven't put it down and it's turned out to the side. Hands on that pelvis, it's level. We're going to rotate right foot out, knee points out to the side, so it's a rotation in the hip joint. Either leave the toes on the floor, heel up, or place it on the calf, or grab hold, lift it higher. Doesn't matter where it is, it's still going to be working the balance. And then we bring the hands together. Tall spine. Breathe the arms up if you can. And I find that steady gaze point. If the eyes are steady, it's much easier to balance. But keep breathing. And I draw that energy up through my foot, through the leg, all the way up to my fingertips. We'll bring the hands back down. Place the foot back down and observe what's going on, how the legs feel, are they the same? And then we can shake it out. Okay. All right, so our next standing, we haven't got a lot of standing postures today. They're sort of more balance. We're going to do, rather than sort of tree pose with the knee and the leg out to the side, we're actually going to have the foot more tucked in so that the knee's pointing forwards. And then we're going to have the hands at the heart center. So this can be a little bit more challenging. We're going to be moving from this position into this position. So we've been working a bit on our warrior threes. There's just different ways to get into a pose. Feel free to use a wall to take your hands to is another option as well. So, balancing on our right foot. We're going to take the left knee up and the foot's just tucked in onto the inside of the right knee. Hands in a prayer position at the heart center. Breathe in. And then as we exhale, start to extend that left leg back as we tip forwards with the hips and the body into a warrior three. Pull the knee in, bring the body back up. Exhale, extend that left leg back as we come forwards. Coming up. Exhale. And place the foot back down. So again, you're going to feel big. So now left leg's the base, check it straight. Hands back at the heart. Forwards. So if you're using a wall, you can right knee up. So just sort of back. So we're going to move slow and steady. Breathing in, coming back. Take that right leg back. All right, inhale, coming up. And that was a nice little challenge for today. And go for a nice tension. All right. Wide-legged standing pose. You could. I'll bring just one to the front. To have one hand on a breath. Just about to die. Okay, so we're back on. Batteries all recharged. And now we're going to move into our wide-legged forward bend. So let's take those feet out so that the outer edges of the feet are roughly parallel to the edges of the mat. And, having some support there near the front that's within easy reach. So placing the hands not on the top of the pelvis, but lower down where the leg joins into the torso here. So this is actually the hip joint. And we're going to fold from the hip joint, keeping the shoulders back and relaxed, chest is nice and open. Coming down halfway, and you might want to slide the hands below the knees there. And then see if you can bring the hands either to the floor or whether you prefer to have your hands a little higher on some supports. And then check in with the feet, that you're not sort of rolling the ankles out or collapsing the ankles in. So you really want to even up that weight through the feet, and you should be getting a good strong opening through the backs of the legs. We're trying to keep the spine nice and long here. Now wide-legged forward bend. And it's a little bit like a wide-legged downward dog. So we're going to take one hand forwards, hips are staying roughly in line with heels, other hand forwards, and then let the head relax between the upper arms as I ease back through my hips. So I'm looking to keep the spine long if possible. This is our wide-legged downward dog. And then we'll walk the hands back in so that they're underneath the shoulders or the chest. And now we're going to go for a little bit of a twist. So if we can have the right hand here in the middle. So I've stuck the brick directly underneath my chest. If you've had enough with your wrists already, you could also do this on a fist. And we're going to lift the head, lift the chest, left hand to the outer hip, turn and rotate. So I take the gaze around, I try and bring that left shoulder around, open up the chest. So a little bit of extra height is going to help with this rotation and twist. So if you're feeling a bit stuck, try going higher with the bottom hand. Okay, we're going to come back to the center, switch, the hands, so either hand flat or you can make a fist or be on your fingertips. Right hand to hip, lift the head, lift the chest, begin to turn, begin to rotate. Is this side different? May or may not be. Notice how we get a bit of extra stretch happening in the opposite inner thigh leg. All right, let's come back to center. And then we'll make this a little bit more dynamic with the breath. So when we come to center, this is going to be our breath in. We're going to switch the hands. And then as we exhale, we're going to turn to the side. So I'm going to go to my left side first. I'm going to breathe in, lift the head, lift the chest. Exhale, either hand to hip, or you might be able to take it up a little higher if it feels okay. Breathe in, come back to center. Switch the hands. Exhale, turn either right hand to hip or right arm up, depending on how it feels. And we breathe. We come back to center. Exhale, turn and rotate. Inhale to center. Exhale, turn and rotate. We've got one more each side. It's interesting how one side always feels a little easier than the other. All right, we come back to center and we're going to give the legs a little break now. So let's turn heels in, bend the knees, sit back with the hips, and then you can rest the elbows. I'm still encouraging the knees out wide. Checking in how that feels. Okay, hands back to floor, straighten the legs, give them a little bit of a shuffle side to side, straightening one knee, bending the other. And then let's turn those heels back out. And either, you have the choice, keeping the head more in line with the heart, you can stay here, you can always come out and rest. If it's okay to have the head lower than the heart, so you've got no blood pressure problems or eye problems, then start to fold a little deeper into your forward bend. You might be able to rest the forearms on the floor, or you could walk the hands back between the feet, whatever's comfortable. So it's just a little deeper. Make sure that you're breathing. And then gently coming back up. So bring the head more in line with the heart. And once more, we're going to take the heels in. Maybe bring the feet in a little closer this time. So when we bend the knees, they're more over the ankles there. Lift the head, lift the heart. And then from this position, we're going to walk into a little bit narrower to set ourselves up for bird pose, maybe. So again, this is very strong on the wrists. Won't suit everybody. I'm going to give you a sideways view. So I'm walking the feet in, heels, toes. So you could just chill out here in your forward bend. You could fold the arms. Or if you feel okay with it, we're going to put the hands on the floor about shoulder width wide. Spread the fingers out, and I keep my gaze in front. Start to lift the heels. As I bend the knees and elbows towards each other, I want to try and place my knees on the backs of the arms as much as I can. And then I keep looking forwards, and then maybe transfer weight to the hands. Maybe lift the toes off the floor. Maybe not. See how that goes. You can stay as long or as little as you like. You can always come back out, have another go. And then easing down. Best bit is now, I'm going to come all the way to the floor and have a rest. You could lie on your stomach. You could come into child. Whatever works. And maybe release those wrists if you did do the weight bearing also. Now we'll be coming over onto our backs for bridge pose. So if you can lie down, and you could, if you've got a support, you could use a brick That's an optional extra if you want to make it a little bit more restive today. We're going to have the feet in line with the hips and knees bent, arms beside the body. So we press down through the feet as we breathe in. Start to lift the buttocks, the spine off the floor, keeping the knees in line with the feet and the hips. And there's space in the front of the throat, space behind the back of the neck. And we're building back strength as well as leg strength. We're going to roll it back down. Relax those legs for a moment. So if you are lucky enough to have something that you can use to rest on, and it doesn't have to be a yoga brick, it could be a good solid book or a solid lunchbox, then what you can do is place it underneath the back of the body, and we put it underneath the sacrum. So to get an idea, we've got the buttock cheeks and we have the crease between the buttocks. So where that stops, you've got this hard little bone, or like a dimple at the top there, and that's your sacrum. So that's where I want to put my support. So when we come up into our bridge, I slide the brick. So I've just got the brick flat. I'm going to put it underneath, and it should be super comfy when it's in the right position. So it's not hurting. If it doesn't feel quite right, have a play. Does it need to go lower? So here I can feel it digging into the buttock flesh. Here is not good. It's more on my spine. My sacrum's a little lower down. So it's a bit like Goldilocks, finding the exact right position, right for you. Shoulders under, chest open. So you can have it here in the flat position. You could choose to not use a brick and then just come down and rest whenever you need to. Middle position I quite like. So we're opening up the hip flexors, I've got the shoulders under, still space around my throat and neck. And I can breathe and soften. So if you're doing this unsupported, come down and rest at any time you need to. When we're supported, we can hold it that little bit longer. And depending on how your back is, so remember I'm working my spine, I'm not sort of collapsed. Even though I've got a support there, I'm not sort of just flopping and doing nothing. I'm lifting my chest, working my back muscles. An option could be to extend the legs. But if it doesn't feel good, just rebend the knees again. But you need to keep working that back as we do this. So we're sending a little bit more of the blood flow towards the throat here, which is where our thyroid, parathyroid glands reside. Now to come back out, we bend the knees, press down through the feet. We're going to lift the hips, slide that brick out from underneath, and just slowly roll down bit by bit through the back. Once it's fully on the floor, notice how it feels. And then you might want to slide legs away and just observe how the whole body feels. And then to finish off, why don't we bend the knees, hand on each knee, and you can either go for a little rock or circles, whatever feels like it's beneficial for you. Okay. That concludes our physical practice. We are now going to just do a little breathing practice before our relaxation. So I'm definitely going to put something warm on. I suggest you do too. And also get any equipment that you know you would like to have set up for your relaxation. It's always good to do our breathing practice upright in a seated position, so you could sit in a chair. And I don't mind if you lean against a wall or if you have your legs crossed or uncrossed, as long as your spine can be straight, that is the main thing. So nice tall back. And we're going to focus on that flow of air through the nostrils and out through the nostrils. You might already be aware that one nostril is more open than the other. And check that the shoulders can be relaxed. So if you have a preferred hand position, resting position, choose that as well. So there's no tension in the arms and the shoulders. And we're doing a practice, it's just called square breath. So we're going to breathe in for a count, then we're going to hold the breath for a count. We'll exhale and then hold. So it's like you're going around a square with the breath. Now we all have a different count, so I don't want to direct your breath because my count could be quite different to yours. So as we observe the inhale, exhale, just mentally count to yourself, how long does it take you to breathe in and out? And once you've settled on a comfortable number, that's the count you're going to use for your square breath. So for instance, if I breathe in for a count of 4, I then am going to suspend the breath, hold the breath for a count of 4. I then exhale for a count of 4. At the end of the exhale, I just suspend the breath, hold the breath for a count of 4. And then we go around the square. So you can do this with the eyes closed or the eyes open, but just imagine you're following a square with the breath. So when you're ready, beginning the practice on the breath in. Now, if at any time it's not comfortable to suspend the breath or hold it, please feel free to just focus on in and out with your breathing. You might notice that as you follow that square breath, if you're visualizing it, do the eyes tend to follow where you are on the breath? So try and keep the eyes relaxed. We'll just do 2 more rounds. And when you've finished, after that exhale, suspension, let go of any control of your breath, just let the body breathe how it likes to. And now you can set yourself up for a good solid relaxation. So finding that comfortable position, making sure you're going to be warm enough. And then when you have yourself settled, if you can, closing the eyes. Just being conscious of the weight of the body on the floor. And then see if you can imagine a beach. So imagine you're standing on this beach looking out over the water. You can feel the sand between your toes, underneath the soles, all the different grains. And you can feel the warmth of the sun heating the skin gently. You can feel that warmth coming up through the sand, through your feet. And there's a very light breeze coming off the water, keeping you cool and refreshed to counteract the warmth of the sun. And as you look out at the sea, it is crystal clear, and at the moment it's flat. There's no waves. It's just glittering in the sunlight, the still body of water. And that water is so inviting that you start to wade out only up to the waist. And the water is quite warm. And as you stand in this body of water, very gentle, little small waves start to move and up against your body. Perhaps when you were a child, you got to play in the sea and you really enjoyed being buffeted around a little bit by the waves. So maybe those waves make it a little harder to stand and hold your ground in the sand. And you just watch the waves build up and then break. They crash down and back into the sea, as if they never existed. So think of these waves as emotions. Emotions that rise up, buffet us around a little bit, but then they sink back and dissolve back into the ocean. And sometimes these waves can be quite gentle, but other times they're like a giant tsunami crashing over us, knocking us from our feet. And sometimes we have feelings like this that very gently affect us, like happiness or boredom or a little bit of sadness. But sometimes we have emotions that are overwhelming and they're so strong and they feel that we can't control them, like a huge giant tsunami washing over us. We're full of excitement or anxiety or anger. So think of all our different emotions as waves that can build, they peak and then they disappear back into the ocean. Nothing lasts forever, whether it's joy or anger, excitement or boredom. And we don't stay in one emotion forever. Different ones come in at different times. They peak, return to the sea, and another wave or an emotion rises to take its place. And we might view emotions as positive or negative, but just like all waves aren't the same, they might not necessarily all be positive or all negative. And if we only ever experienced the positive emotions, it wouldn't give us a context if we didn't have the negative emotions also. We can't have one side without the other. And just as we can't control the sea, we can't always choose to not have particular feelings. So think of yourself perhaps as a surfer, rising or surfing across the surface of the ocean, across our emotions. And surfers don't change the waves, they ride them. And then they paddle out for the next one. So next time you're aware of emotions that are crashing around or just gently lapping, embrace the fact that that feeling, that emotion is there and that you're going to ride it out. And eventually it will disappear back into that ocean until you can ride the next wave. Be aware of what emotions you may be riding at the moment. Think of making your way back out of that water, back to the earth. solid ground. And conscious of the different sounds that might be around you. Aware of the room that you're lying in. Feeling the floor beneath you. And aware of that breath in the nostrils, breathing in that little bit deeper as you start to extend and to stretch into the arms and the legs. Moving the body in any way feels good to do so. Waking up. Having a big yawn perhaps. And then when you're ready, rolling over to one side. And then coming up to sit in a comfortable position. So this week's quote, I do not have the author for, but it says, "Joy often comes after sorrow, like morning after night." So in theme with our relaxation, you can't have the good without the bad. And is the bad always a bad thing? And is the good always a good thing? So we look for balance. Namaste. Have an excellent rest of your day. And hopefully in a few more weeks we may be able to have our yoga classes in real life. We'll see how we go. So thanks very much.